Yep, we can kick it off.
Okay, welcome everyone, and good morning. Sorry for our technical difficulties. We seem to have had a couple of little glitches there with audio, but I think we're all back on. And if at any point anybody in the audience is having a hard time hearing or needs some additional assistance, please put a question in chat. We will be moderating that, or put a note in chat and we can follow up. I'm really excited to be hosting the webinar this morning with Ameritech, who have put this great panel together for you. And my name is Marie Weiss. I'm the founder and CEO of Marketing Copilot, and I've been helping tech companies with their go-to-market strategies for over 20 years, specifically around improving demand generation and lead generation. And recently, as we all have, I found myself in AI and have had an opportunity to go across the country and speak about responsible AI. So today, I'm excited to be speaking on, or moderating this panel with a group of very distinguished individuals. Yasmin Abdi, founder and CEO of NoHack. Dion James, who is a partner and partner engineer and national and regional SI and general AI ambassador, and works in with Google in the public sector. Niran Babu Chintu, who's data and governance and compliance at Ameritech, and of course our host from Ameritech, Ali. And everybody's going to have a chance to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do. And we are going to pose 5 very important questions to our group today with respect to AI. And again, I encourage everyone on the call today to please use the chat and ask questions. This is for you today, our audience, and we hope that you'll raise some interesting questions with respect to AI and what's going on in AI. I'm going to open it up. If we can move to the first question, please, Christy, and I know Christy is also helping us. If I could move to the first question, and I want to kick it off with you, Yasmin, if that's okay, and please do take a minute, introduce yourself, and let people know what your background is. But I think the question that everybody in the marketplace is asking right now is, what is the opportunity or potential of AI in business? What can we really do with AI? What's it really all about? Yasmin?
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. A little bit about myself. My name is Yasmin Abdi, and I am the CEO and founder of NoHack. NoHack is a cybersecurity consulting firm based in the DMV, really just trying to help startups and small businesses with their security posture. We do a breadth of work, whether it's vulnerability and risk assessment, threat intelligence, threat detection, really just depending on what the client needs. We do an initial assessment, find vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and then create tailored solutions for our clients. Outside of NoHack, I was in big tech for 7 years. I was leading global cybersecurity at Snapchat. And before Snapchat, I was at Google, and before that, I was at Instagram. So yeah, a little bit about me. I think in regards to this question, what is the opportunity or potential of AI in business? The thing that comes to my mind, first and foremost, is just the efficiency in daily tasks. As you all know, and I'm sure you guys have played around with ChatGPT and some of these other AI models, but it really just simplifies daily operations by automating some of those tasks. And then within security, I think that it finds threats faster, and it's able to detect real-time patterns and anomalies within potential risks. So there's a lot of benefits within AI as it regards to businesses, but as well as security. I think in terms of security as well, something that comes to my mind is business protection. AI, because of the plethora of data that it's backed up with and data that I can analyze, it really helps stay ahead of evolving cyber threats by continuously learning on like the patterns that it's able to detect. So a lot of benefits for business, but a lot of additional benefits when it comes to cybersecurity.
That's great. And for our audience today, Yasmin has a ton of background in security, and I know this is one of the #1 questions people are asking. Ali, let's toss it over to you. Please introduce yourself to the audience and let us know what you think the opportunity is today for AI.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Great.
can.
I'm Ali. Good morning and afternoon. And thank you for being here. I'm Ali Kamara, Chief Technology Officer and founder of Ameritech IT Solutions. We are leading cybersecurity and a cloud service provider in the DC area. Have about 15 years of experience. We focus on developing and managing cybersecurity infrastructure and companies as well. I work across, different companies, like the World Bank, Wells Fargo. I work with Coupa in Silicon Valley, and that's where I probably met Yasmin when we first met at DEF CON. It was an amazing experience, and that's how we kind of connected. So today I'm really excited, right, to join my fellow speakers on here to discuss how AI is transforming businesses and engaging with customers as well. Understanding how people use technology on everyday tasks, as Yasmin mentioned, and then just building these benefits as well. And also, as today, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so this discussion is very timely. And again, thanks for joining us. So, with regards to opportunity around AI, I do think it gets used as a broad term, but that makes it very fascinating, right? We are talking about things like facial recognition at airports, an algorithm that detect credit card frauds, and cities using AI to determine and optimize, police patrols. So what this does is basically allowing us to efficiently recognize as humans how we can actually be more effective in these day-to-day tasks that are happening right now. However, I do have a bit of a different perspective, and I would like to bring in this perspective. And for me, we have the early adapters, the late adapters, and non-adapters, right? And so those early adapters are basically those organizations, right, trying to establish a maturity model that understands the potential risks and benefits of AI. So those are the opportunities around that. And I want to look at the late adapters too, right? Businesses and organizations that are a bit hesitant and have some concern about how they can implement AI, and also due to lack of expertise within the organization, right? And then non-adapters. So non-adapters is just pure misconception of people who believe that it's too complex and it's expensive and it only belongs to large organizations and things like that. So when I look at opportunity in AI, I look at these formats and try to categorize and then see who is getting ready for this sort of stuff as well, right? And so that for me is very important.
Yeah, so couple things that you said there, and I think it's probably resonating with our audience right now, but the fact that AI really should be helping and enabling humans to do things as opposed to expecting it to replace what's happening. So I think that's a really important point. And I think that's one we're going to want to think about as we move forward, is that enabling people is very important as opposed to replacing people. And that sort of leads then to training and educating people about how AI is going to work in a business. I think one of the topics I've been hearing lately is about the importance of training employees around this. And a lot of people think, well, what do you need to train somebody in AI for? Well, I think it's really important to understand within an organization, if you're going to deploy AI, how is it going to be used and how are employees going to use that properly in their work? And so I think that's what people are struggling with. I think that's why a few people are on the fence about it. Dion, I'm going to pass it over to you now. If you could introduce yourself and just take a moment and answer question number one for our audience.
Hey everyone, good morning. Can you all hear me? Great.
Yeah.
So my name is Dion James. I'm doing good. My name is Dion James. I am currently a partner engineer for Google Public Sector. I work with our system integrators on a national level to help them bring Google technology and their solutions to the public sector. Primarily, my focus is on the state and local government side of the house, as well as education. So we also cover your federal, civilian, national security agencies as well. My background is in cybersecurity. So I've been in the industry for about 10 years. I was working as a cybersecurity engineer for Palo Alto Networks. And prior to that, I was a network engineer for Aruba Networks, which is a company under Hewlett Packard Enterprise. So getting into the cloud has been my most recent endeavor, but I have the opportunity to work as an AI ambassador for Google, which has been pretty cool. And to drill in onto this topic and offer my insight, I think the potential opportunity that we see is, following up to my other panelists, it's really around the efficiencies that people can take advantage of, as well as even businesses, right? So working within the public sector, one of my points of views really is around government systems. If you think about, getting your ID or going to like the airport or something of that nature, you have to leverage certain technologies, or you have to wait based off of the proficiency of the staff, right? So in terms of the experience that everyday people can have when it comes to using outdated systems that can be advanced through the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence. I think in business, there's a true opportunity because of just the historical nuances that technology is now allowing us to modernize. And in that regard, also, I think the opportunity, it almost gives us a second shot almost at creating a more inclusive technology landscape, right? I mentioned that to say with AI solutions, there is no AI without data. So the data component of the training sets of what information goes into all of these chatbot AI tools that we're using now, such as ChatGPT or Gemini from Google, or any of the other large language models that we see, Anthropic, Facebook with Llama. There's so much information that's out there, and each one does have its own purpose. So I think the potential benefit is really we're getting a new opportunity to transition with this disruptor in the technology space. And I think that gives us ability to revamp the way we've done things, as well as boost our own efficiencies as the way to work is now changing. So that would be my insight there.
And I think one of the points you just made that I think is very interesting, and I think this is something that the average person who's just waking up to this AI reality needs to understand. Something you said that is very, very smart is AI doesn't work without data. And so I think for the business people today, what you really need to wrap your head around is, to use AI efficiently, it has to run on some data lake, some data pool, some data information. And that's where businesses are trying to understand, should we be then running AI on our own data, or should we be using public data and bringing it in? Does that increase a bigger security risk? What does that do for us? And I think these are some of the challenging questions that businesses are grappling with right now. How do we use it on our own data? How do we, create this hybrid between public data and what we're trying to do in the business? And I've heard a few people say, and I think the panel would agree with this, is that, if you don't have your own security systems in place right now within your business, if you haven't taken a good hard look at security, how you manage data, the accuracy of your data, and if your data is useful, applying AI is just going to multiply a mess 20 times faster and 20 times bigger. And I think a lot of companies right now are looking to companies like Ameritech to say, help me get my house in order before I want to figure out where AI plays a role.
Yeah.
And we've got a question here, but we'll come back to it in a second. Naren, let's get you to introduce yourself, and let's talk about number one here. What do you think the business opportunity is right now?
Yeah, Mary. Thanks, Mary. So, hello, everyone. I'm Naren. I lead data governance and compliance department at Canarica. So we help our clients in realizing comprehensive data governance and compliance programs to ensure data security, data privacy, risk, and compliance management. I have around 17 years of experience within the area of data, as well as data governance and compliance, as well as AI. So the AI has given power to every individual. It has ensured that all the individuals or all the businesses are very well empowered with all kinds of automations, from the point where with a simple prediction to the point where complex robots can be developed based on the AI. So the efficiency has very much increased, and the businesses, the traditional businesses or the conservative methods that businesses use, these got moved to a high efficient and high speed customer service. So the customers can are well served by these businesses within fraction of seconds using AI. So uh, AI has been playing a vital role in healthcare industry, logistics and transportation, or manufacturing industry, or banking. So all the processes get uh, if get automated, and this is where the ease of doing businesses increases, and businesses currently are using the power of AI in order to help the customers.
So one of the questions that we've just had from the audience that I think is very interesting, and I love this question from Morris: should individual businesses develop business or business unit ambassadors, champions to enhance adoption? This is an interesting question because, all the panelists have been in tech for a long time, and we always know that user adoption is a big issue when any new technology is introduced. My feeling, and I'm happy to hear from the panelists on this, is that yes, I believe every company should have a policy, an AI policy in place that says how a business is going to use AI to be transparent to their customers and to their employees. But I think AI is a little bit different in that while we do need champions to roll it out, I think everybody has to embrace it. And the one opportunity that I see for AI that's kind of exciting is AI has the opportunity to break down some of those walls within business units. And sometimes business units have a wall up around them. Finance is only going to deal with the finance system, and nobody else is allowed to be into the finance system. And while we need to protect that data if we're going to roll it out, I think AI can really break down silos, and it can break down walls. And I'm going to ask Ali what he thinks about that question. But that's sort of my take on it, is that, yeah, having an ambassador or champion is a good thing. But I think everyone in an organization, no matter what role they play, has to understand AI in their company today. Ali, what do you think?
No, that's a really great question, right? And from my perspective is AI as it's evolving and moving around and doing a lot of and helping us grow. I do think people need to understand that as much as we want to adapt it, it has to be systematically aligned, right? And so businesses need to understand, they need to firstly develop, right, a maturity model. They need to understand the strategy and tactics around that. So how do you cannot build a system without you try to understand in the long term where do you want that to go and what benefits going to have on the organizations as well. So the first thing that comes to my mind, even this comes to race, is understanding the organization maturity model in terms of where they want to go into the business, understanding what tactics do you employ, right, and explore to allow you to continuously monitor that, because AI is there, but it involves a continuous learning as well, right? And the data we feed it is very important because there's biases based in data as well. So if you feed the AI wrong data as
Right.
well, it becomes unbiased and stuff like that, right? So understand that we need to use clean data to make sure that the AI understands what we're trying to do is very much important. That will help us adapt those business adaptations and allow us to flow and make and enable our operations be more effective.
Yeah, yeah. Can we move on to the next slide there, Christy? Let's get to the next question. And before we do that, Dion, why don't you weigh in?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in the sense of the actual question around ambassadors and champions to enhance adoption, right? Like I said, one of the parts of my title is I'm a generative AI ambassador for Google. And I think to the point of, you had mentioned earlier, understanding how to use these tools from privacy concerns to data regulation, things of that nature. I think even when we look at a business, right, understanding all the points Ali made about understanding how to adopt for a particular business is one thing. But I think even with ambassadors or champions, right, I think it's a good effort to broaden the mainstream just awareness of what these tools can do, right? Because from a personal user perspective, the tools are out there on a consumer level. So if you as a consumer can utilize free tools, if this is something that's supposed to make your job easier, there are times where somebody, people at work in their corporate jobs are using these tools, whether authorized or not, more times than not. And to the point of the policies being implemented, right? As an ambassador, one of the things that I typically go around is to let people know, if no one has talked to you about it beforehand from a data privacy regulation, or even just, you know, you putting your organization at risk, I think ambassadors can help spread that message, because if you have someone who has been using the tools, experimenting with the tools, and that can really speak to answer the questions that people who have not took a deep dive into it, I think there is definitely a room for ambassadors and champions to enhance adoption, because you can spread awareness of the education that might be lacking out there for people today.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful segue into our next question. So thank you, Dion. I would totally agree there. What are the risks of AI in business? So we've just talked about it. If you don't have people really understanding what's going on across, and I personally, I've been in the tech sector for 30 years. I think AI is a game changer, and a game changer different than any of the other things we've seen in the last 30 years in tech. And I think it's going to be a huge impact on the world we live in. And we have another question that I'm going to come back to later on, but somebody raised a very, very interesting point with respect to countries that are, you know, maybe way behind from a technology perspective, how this allows them to leapfrog forward. We'll come back to that question in a second. But Yasmin, I'm interested in your opinion here. What are the risks of AI in business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think three things come to my mind. I want to start with the bias in AI and algorithms. So sometimes AI can unintentionally perpetuate bias if it's trained on unbalanced or biased data. So what that really means is, as we all know, AI is there's large language models and data sets, and sometimes if it's not trained on a breadth of different data sets, the decision making could be biased. So it's really important that when we are training these AI and these data sets, that we use a bunch of different data sets to make sure that we are unbiased in the decision making process. And also the people that are working to build these large language models come from a lot of different backgrounds and just have a diverse perspective, diverse backgrounds, et cetera. So I think the biggest thing that I see as a potential risk would be the bias in the AI algorithms. And then I think secondly, the data privacy and security. So as we know, these AI systems rely on vast amounts of data. And what does that mean? That means that there's an increasing risk of breaches if they are not properly protected. So I think data privacy and security is another really big risk that we should all just take note of and remember when we are using these AI models, because you're constantly feeding it more data, and the risk of it potentially being breached is high as well. And then I think the last thing that ties in back with the bias is sometimes there is a lack of transparency around how do these decisions actually, like, how do they happen? I think a lot of models are sometimes considered black boxes. And what that means is it's typically harder for end users in the business to really understand like how decisions are being made. So I think that those could potentially sometimes result in legal or ethical challenges if you don't really know how the decision's being made, and how the AI is being trained. It could potentially pose another risk. So I would say that the bias in AI algorithms, data privacy and security, and then lastly, the lack of transparency would be the biggest risks from my perspective.
Well, you're a woman after my own heart. The data bias issue, and we talk about the 4 pillars of responsible AI, and one of them is data bias. And you know, I think that's where people have to really pay attention. Naren, what are your thoughts on this one?
So yeah, definitely. So bias is one thing, and the most important thing I would like to talk about is about the data security and privacy part, so I was mentioning that AI has given a lot of power to people, a lot of power to users, businesses, and everyone, all the users. Now, this is where the risk of overexposure of private data or data theft or data leakages or data breaches come into play a major vital role. Now, this is not just about, now there are two prospects for this. One is the user data is lost, the user data is getting into the wrong hands. The other one is the businesses are getting fined for not adhering to proper data sharing policies and not adhering to GDPR or HIPAA policies. So this is where, so in order to ensure that both these challenges are met, are actually overcome, uh, uh, there are data governance and compliance policies have to be in place before even we go there and use AI. I can in fact go ahead with certain examples where, let me explain with an example. Let's say, let's consider a governance tool like Microsoft Purview. So Microsoft Purview can create a lot of labels on the data, which is available in the whole data ecosystem. So it actually divides the, identifies the sensitive information, and based on its sensitivity, usually labels can be labeled on these documents or your emails or data assets and data which is in not in transit. And once these all labels are identified and applied on these documents and different data assets, then the policies are created on top of it. These policies are called data loss prevention policies. So these policies basically create, they dictate rules. Rules which actually specify to whom this information should be available, to whom it should be restricted, who can access this, who can share the information, who cannot share this information. Now, on top of it, when AI comes into play, when a user tries to access sensitive information, based on the policies that are created previously, this data can be restricted. For example, let's say user A requests for salary information of user B by providing some prompts in AI tool. The policies which were created previously would restrict allowing this information for the user A to access or share. Similarly, financial information of the company can also be restricted. It is very easy to prompt ask a question to AI, but AI should be able to restrict the information based on the policies. That is where the whole different tools and different rules or technologies within the area of compliance and compliance, privacy, risk, and data governance area comes into play when AI is used. So this is what we are calling AI, using AI ethically. Yeah.
All right, excellent. If we could move on to the next question, I just want to be conscious of time because unfortunately we started late and I want to make sure that we're respectful of our time. This is one I particularly like. I love this question. What are the gotchas when you first implement AI? And we did have a question from the audience that I think is a good one. And then I appreciate that, Dion, you've already jumped in there to answer it. Is there any preference on the different platforms for AI? Dion, maybe you could just share with everybody what your answer back on that one was, because you gave a really good answer there.
Thank you. Yeah, so the question that was mentioned in the chat, I think preference is a matter of one, education, knowing which platform is designed for the ideal goal that you're trying to accomplish. So, for example, one of the things we always say at Google is that the larger the large language model, the AI tool, right, does not necessarily always mean that it's the better option for what you're trying to accomplish, right? So, because these AI tools are trained on data sets, if you have something that's more specific, like if you have a very niche business, for example, that would determine what type of model you should choose. So all the major concerns that all the other panelists have mentioned, data privacy, security, what mechanisms are in place in order for your protections, things of that nature, I think are all things that you need to determine when you assess a platform. And then from there, also, when we talk about true AI, like how is this data trained? Are there versions of these updated versions of the large language model that's going to come into account? And when they do update it, right, what type of updates have come into play? Are they adding in more data connectors, meaning you can connect your data set to real time or real internet uses in terms of your searches, things of that nature? Are they doing things in a responsible way, right? And then, of course, lastly, cost, right? At the end of the day, we talk about all these models, right now, from a consumer side of the house, there are free options and things of that nature for us to use. But if we talk about an enterprise use case, you have to pay for this, right? There's back end services that have
Right.
to be accounted for and all of those things. And cost will definitely dictate sometimes which platform you choose, regardless of all the other things I mentioned. But if in a perfect world, if
Yeah.
budget is not really a concern, you take into account all those things.
Okay, so yet again, you've done a beautiful segue into question number 3. And I think for the audience, if I was going to sum up what Dion just said, is the first gotcha is don't think bigger is better. So the first gotcha is just because something has a really large data lake or large learning language model behind it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best fit for your business. You really have to assess those goals and figure out what you're trying to do. I think the second gotcha there, if I could paraphrase it, is that you need to be really clear right off the hop what your goal is and how you're going to implement this. And I think that what goes into that is we have a tendency with tools, and Google is the one who introduced this model, that we think certain tools are free. That, well, I can just go do a web search for free on a browser. I can go to ChatGPT and get information for free. But when you really start to look at how to implement something for the business, don't think that it's going to be free. Don't think that it's going to be cheap, because a lot of time and energy has to go into how you're going to roll this out in the organization, and it's going to take time, money, and resources to figure that out. So I think those are 2 really important gotchas. Thanks so much, Dion, for that. Yasmin, what's one of your gotchas here? What would your gotcha be?
Yeah, I think Dion hit it on the head. But sometimes it just depends on the platform that you're using. Something that I learned quickly was that IBM Watson is actually preferred in industries like healthcare and finance and legal, just due to its the natural language processing capabilities as it has to explain some of these different like healthcare terminology, some of these legal findings, some of their workflows are very specific to the industry that you're in. So I think, yeah, that would just be the one thing that I wanted to add to that.
Okay, I think that's great. We only have 10 minutes left, and in the interest of time, I think one of the questions that's coming from the audience is really interesting. Again, Morris is asking, when algorithms are getting trained, what organizations have the ability to influence these data sets and data models? And in particular, he's wondering, who has the ability to influence, so therefore, can a business organization have input into the data model? Who wants to tackle that question? Ali, do you have an answer for our group today?
Can you repeat the question again, Mary? I didn't
Yeah,
that probably was.
absolutely. So let's just take ChatGPT as an example.
Right.
It's pulling information probably from across the internet and a bunch of other places. And so Morris is asking, what organizations have the ability to influence this data and data model? Because I think that's what people are saying. Computer scientists will say, well, it's just data. And that always used to bother me as I was talking about AI, because it's not just data. It's data that came from somewhere, and it could be heavily biased. But as it starts to learn, who has the ability to influence the data in a particular data set?
Oh yeah, I think I do understand that. I think as businesses, I think that has to deal with the folks or the creation around those data as well, people who are actually writing those data sets as well. So if you're going to write the data to perform a specific task, you got to understand and make sure it aligns with what people are actually trying to do as well. So having people being responsible as well, responsible parties, and ensuring that those data basically are meeting those requirements to kind of help improve those efficiency and work processes, it's almost like unimaginable that you might not even get the result that you will need as well. So for example, you have a lot of different data sets, right? You have like ChatGPT, you have Bard, you have Copilot. They are all based on different systems and different algorithms that kind of feed in different informations as well. So understanding like understanding the vendors responsible, they have to take responsibility and make sure that those data are specifically toned up, optimized, and ready to use for those organizations and businesses as they get aligned. I mean, that's kind of how I would like to answer that.
But, right. So does anybody else on the panel want to answer the question, how do you influence a data set? If you're an external business, how could you influence a data set? How do you influence the data set of ChatGPT? Can you? Because I think that's a big gotcha, and I think that's a question that a lot of businesses are asking. We just have to trust that the information that's being returned in a data set is, we can go fact check it, we can do a lot with it, but if you want to now correct that answer, it's not like going on to Wikipedia and saying, I'm going to put an entry in here and correct this information because, factually it's not right. And I think that's where some people are really struggling.
Another thing I wanted to add as well, right, is also bearing in mind that the AI is constantly learning, right, as you improve or implement your exactly. So they're constantly learning, right? So how do you influence that data set, right? So when it gets first implemented, right, they are constantly learning stuff. So you've got to be able to keep up as they are learning new data patterns, and things like that. But how do you keep up with that as well? So that can also help influence that, because if you got a right methodology in place, that if there's a new, as the AI is learning and your business is also maturing and learning too, that can help you influence what you're doing, because you understand the AI is maturing and it's learning new stuff, and you're incorporating that into your concept as well on how you're doing that.
Yeah. So Morris, one of the things I've heard recently is that it really comes down to your prompting and how you prompt the tool, because once you start prompting and you get more sophisticated with your prompting, you can put information back to it and say, but that's not what I'm looking for. I want to specifically know this and understand this. And it's constantly learning that and trying to answer that question because you're asking it in a different way. So I think prompting is going to become very interesting, and how we prompt something and the questions we ask then allows the influence within the data that goes back into it. And I think it's going to be a matter of letting human beings play around with it over the next 12 months to see where some of these things shake out. I think that would be very important for people to understand as they're trying to figure out how to apply an AI strategy to their business. Christy, if we could just jump to the slide about your upcoming event in December, that would be really great. I want to put this up for everybody so that you have an opportunity to check this out. Ameritech is going to be attending the second annual Small Business Summit. There's some information there about where it is and the time, and I believe that you can use this code to register tomorrow. There's some great information there about our host, Ameritech, and how you can get in touch with them and contact them. And I have raised my hand and offered to help put out further content on these key questions that we wanted to answer today on the panel, including some of the ones you've included. And I think we'll discuss maybe putting out further content here, because we do really have some great information that's being shared by our audience and questions that are being asked that I think is on everyone's mind. And I know I could do a full hour just on data bias alone. It's a topic near and dear to my heart, as I'm sure it is for many of our panelists. And I think as we continue to figure out where the opportunity is for AI in all of our businesses, I think the most important thing you can be doing right now, and panelists, feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think just right now we have to educate ourselves. We have to educate ourselves on what these tools are, how they actually work, and what the implications are to our businesses and our business processes. And if we can get in there and be thoughtful about this at the front end of deploying AI, then we hopefully do less damage in putting our organizations at risk in data we bring in, data we leverage, how we use our own internal data. We've already started to hear some stories of people not segmenting data correctly, so information that isn't supposed to be shared across the company gets shared across the company. So don't just go turn AI on. Actually spend some time and put people together in your company and say, how do we want to use this? How do we want to improve our businesses? And how do we actually want to transform our businesses with this? Because I think there's a huge opportunity for many, many companies right now to be able to transform their business and leverage some of these tools in a way that will make their companies look very, very different 2 or 3 years from now. So I'd like to thank all of our panelists today, Yasmin, Ali, Dion, and Naren, for sharing your thoughts. And I know this is only the beginning of a longer and deeper conversation that we should be having with our customers and communities at large. So I look forward to potentially coming back at this topic in a couple of weeks, and we could even answer more questions from people. But thank you very much for taking part today. Please do visit Ameritech at the second annual Small Business Summit and contact them if you have further questions. And get in there, start dabbling with some of the tools that are available for free to see how they function before you start layering AI into your business. And right there in the chat is the link for the Ameritech conference, and it sounds like it's going to be a good one. So thank you, everyone, for participating today. I hope you have a great day, and do make AI part of your agenda going forward. Thank you.
Yep,
Hey,
Twins is the
everyone.
best
Yeah.
one.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm still able to address 1 or 2 questions if I'm able to stay on. I think there was a question from Pierre, if you stay on as well, if I'm able to address that. But
This was really great. Thank you all so much. I unfortunately have to jump to another meeting, but yeah, let's all definitely stay connected. You can find me on socials, Yasmin Abdi, and my company nohackllc.com, or nohack on socials as well. Definitely would love to keep this conversation going. So yeah, let's stay in touch. And it was so great. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you, Mary, for hosting. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation.
thanks, Yas.
Fabulous. Thanks, Yasmin. Okay, we're going to, Ali, if you want to circle back after we let all of our participants exit, we should probably end the webinar and then we can circle back.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.